Yeah, absolutely. So when we speak to people at exhibitions, when we speak to students around these documents, the message that we're trying to convey is this is part of our shared history, and it's down to all of us to have an understanding of what that is. I always quip that we all know something about Guy Fawkes and we all know something about Shakespeare, but there's a large amount of information within our shared history connected to slavery that we don't quite have as a national psyche. So for us, it's about evidence-led, looking at facts and understanding that full arc. And again, a bit of a side note to that is my heritage is Jamaican. So we also cover the Windrush generation. We have lots of memorabilia, lots of stories, lots of recordings. And that's part of that arc of emancipation, migration of movement, and so on. And again, the stories that relate back to Jamaican plantations. So that's the first part. The second part about the Beckford's Tower talk is the Beckford's Tower is an absolute symbol of the time where we had William Beckford who created this monument to himself directly from the funds of slavery at the time. And again, not in a way that polarizes or sensationalizes. We approach this in a way that we want to talk evidence, we want to talk facts. We want people to come to the tower and look at it. We want people to look at the documents. And what better place to actually walk through these documents and talk about the machinery of the then administration and bureaucracy of Britain than Beckford's Tower. So we're inviting people to come, spend some time with the documents, have a chat with us throughout the session, throughout the evening. And it's a chance for us to have an open and honest conversation.
They've done, Bath Preservation Trust have done a pretty good job, haven't they, in including in their historical displays within the tower a full and frank explanation of Beckford and his associations with slavery.
Absolutely. I think they've acted as the visionaries for this within the area. Again, Durham Park National Trust, they're doing loads of great work, again, to tackle their complex history. So I think it's great that we've got so many organisations within Bath who are really leading the charge here and making it possible for organisations, charities like mine, to come and also support that.
One wonders how much of Georgian Bath was actually funded with plantation slave money.
Absolutely, and I mean that's another great point that we have as part of this wider conversation. Much in the way, I always say that much in the way that the internet touches everybody today, at the time in Georgian Bath, slavery would have also been a touch point for most people, regardless whether you were an investor in plantation. If you were a blacksmith, it's likely that you were making iron to support the machinery of slavery. If you were a carpenter, it's likely that you would have been building something in terms of wooden material in support of that industry. Because the industry of empire really bolstered Britain at the time, and the wealth that came in through it was so paramount to the survival of the country at the time.
Matt, you've kindly brought a couple of documents along with you, and I think the one you're holding has a local relevance too, doesn't it?
Absolutely. This one's really interesting because this is local to Bath. So we have here a document which relates to a plantation in Jamaica, and there's a chap here called Charles Gray, who at the time was also the vice president for the Bath and West Agricultural Society.
Which was locally based.
Absolutely, and they're still running today. However, I think now they are known as the Royal Bath and West
yes.
Agricultural Society.
And what is this a list of?
So this is a list of essentially assets on a plantation. So we have men, women, children, all enslaved, and we have their names, we have their assigned value, and we also have a selection of assets referring to stock, barrels, materials, and livestock.
That is terrible that men and women should be valued, and not only valued, but some are more valuable than others. Why is that?
Absolutely. I mean, it really is shocking. And when we speak to students, speak to people, it's always really confronting. The valuation will be relating to what trade they have, if they have a technical skill, if they're a highly skilled carpenter, if they are a barrel maker. You'll also see here that there are names with invalid written next to them. So they likely would have been disabled, they likely may have been non-compliant, but that was obviously going to be a really, really difficult place for them to be, because it actually cost the enslaver more to keep them, because it had to feed and shelter them. And again, you'll see that throughout here, the valuation of 0 or potentially a valuation of useless, which just acted as that inventory. These documents as well would also be used as a way to indemnify the plantation owner against their loss. So as we walk towards the end of the abolition of slavery, there was a point where the enslavers were paid for their loss, which we have documents of that we also exhibit too.